Hi everyone, welcome back to Belle's Books. I'm Carly and today I want to talk to you about my reading year in review for 2020 and my reading goals for 2021. Katie has just flung her tail at the radiator. You right there, Katie? She's getting up. It's a momentous occasion. She's asleep on the blanket next to me. She hasn't moved all day, and as soon as I start filming, she gets up and turns around. All right, thanks for that dramatic entrance, Katie. So, my reading year in review for 2020, I had set my Goodreads challenge at 60 books. And according to Goodreads, I read 50 books. Now, none of these numbers add up. I'm going to do a cutaway in a minute to talk to you about a couple of pages from my lovely book journal that I keep. So I use this notebook to track what I'm reading and write book reviews and make notes for my booktube channel and things I want to talk to you about. So my target was 60. I didn't hit that. I'm not going to be too hard on myself because, you know, last year was terrible. And also my audiobook consumption plummeted, as I've spoken about before, because I would ordinarily listen to audiobooks in the car. I stopped driving anywhere because I had no commute because we were working from home. So I just didn't listen to that many audiobooks. And that, I think, was what brought my total right down. But like I say, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I still read 48 books in 2020, and that's good going. Like, I know I am a slow reader, and by booktube standards, I am a very slow reader. Like, I've seen, you know, plenty of other videos of other booktubers saying, I read 150 books this year, I read 200 books this year. There's no way I can do that. I just cannot read that fast. And also, last year, I had a massive reading slump when the first lockdown hit because couldn't concentrate, you know, anxiety was quite high. That's fine. I'm not going to stress about it. 48 books, still good. So I'm going to do a cutaway now where I show you my stats for what I read in terms of genre, age category, format, and what else have I got? POC, author, and gender of author. So these stats are from a spreadsheet that I also kept. I kept the core pile spreadsheet, which was amazing. It's the first time I've tracked my reading in a spreadsheet. It was from G at Book Roast, so I will link her video in the description box below so you can go check it out. It's a fantastic spreadsheet she has made available for you to download and use. So you use it in Google Docs. You basically just input what books you're reading and answer a few questions, like those kind of categories. And then on the second tab of the spreadsheet, it does all the stats work for you. It's got some very pretty graphs and I enjoyed that very much. So that was fun this year. I'll probably do the same thing again this year, but I just like having like a physical thing to write in. I'm very much a tactile person, so I will still keep my bullet journal of my reading because mainly I like to handwrite my impressions of books. So I have book review pages here where I, after I finish a book, write out my thoughts on it. So that's nice, and I'm going to carry on doing that. That's one of my goals for next year. So, like I said, I'll link the spreadsheet down below. It's really good, actually, because it makes you think in quite a lot of detail about what you enjoyed about a book. So the core pile anagram is that I can't remember what it is, something like characters, atmosphere. I don't know what the W is. It's all in the video. I'll link it down below. But it makes you think about different aspects of the book and your rating for each of those different aspects. So I would only use it for fiction. If it was like non-fiction, poetry, memoir, I wouldn't use those. I'd just put in my overall star rating and have a general rating for it. But for the fiction, I found that really useful. So go check out G's video because it's great. Now let's talk about my stats. Right, inside the pages of my bullet journal, I've got my Goodreads reading challenge target, which was 60. Sorry for the camera moving, I'm trying to stay very still. Which I didn't make because, like I said, there was a problem with my audiobook intake. So I read 46 books and I DNF'd 3. The 3 DNFs I've written down here was all due to, I just didn't like the writing style. They didn't keep me engaged. I wasn't invested. Gender Rebels, I really liked the content, but the writing style was irksome. I couldn't carry on with it. And the other 2, Life in the Garden by Penelope Lively and History of Rain by Niall Williams, just like was not on board with it, just slightly boring. Wasn't engaged. And now, when I looked through my Goodreads list, and I thought, there's only 3 DNFs, that's not many. Was there something else that I should have DNF'd? Yes. It was The Tiger Flute by Larissa Lai. I did have a rant about this on a previous video, so I'm not going to go into it. Not my bag. Just not my bag. And that's all I'm going to say. I should have DNF'd it. I read till the end because it was a book club pick, and I should have just put it down. And as per my favourites video, my favourite book of the year was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. So now, let's look at the stats. So, these stats are all from the core pile spreadsheet. So in terms of format, audiobook way down, so only 8 audiobooks. And also none of these things add up. Like, according to my Goodreads, it said I read 50. So I worked that out as I DNF'd 3 and I read 46. What? But here it's 48 because I read 40 physical and 8 audiobooks. Age category, mostly adult, so 41 adult books, 5 middle grade, which kind of surprised me. I didn't really think that I'd read that many middle grade, and only 2 YA. And genre, this is the bit that I find interesting. So only 1 classic. Can't even remember what that was now. Probably didn't count Shirley because I haven't finished that. 2 short story collections, 2 biographies, 1 dystopia, that was The Tiger Flu. Historical fiction, that's my bag, 7 of those. Magic realism, can't remember what that was. Oh, was it What is for Witching, possibly? 7 fantasy, yes, I'm on board with fantasy. Non-fiction, 10. That's kind of okay, but I think it's because when I read for my PhD, I never finish. I don't read whole books, I dip in and out of them, so I don't count the PhD books for that. 7 poetry, good but not enough, and 10 contemporary, which makes sense because that's my bag. Now this was interesting. So on the core pile spreadsheet, it asks questions. Is the author POC? 19 Black or POC authors and 29 not. So again, not good enough. And gender, mostly female. That's not a big shocker though, really. And only 5 male, 3 non-binary. So, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this. It's, well, considering the ridiculousness that was 2020, that's still not bad, you know? That's not bad. So I'm pleased with that. Reading 48 books, or however many it was, 48, 49, I don't know. 46, what? I think that's still good going for a terrible year. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. Must do better. Okay, so because I set myself a high target on Goodreads for 2020 and I missed it. And if there's anything I've learnt from 2020, it's don't make ambitious plans, because a pandemic is going to wipe them all out. So this year I'm going in gentle on myself. I mean, I have still set a target of 40 books on Goodreads. Now, I don't know whether that is achievable again because it's the end of January and I still haven't listen to an audiobook, and again, I don't know how my audiobook consumption is going to go along this year, but 40 books, that's kind of what I would like to hope to get to. If I did 48 2020, I could probably do it. So a standard target of 40 books, fine. One thing I would like to do is read more books which are to do with my PhD, because whilst being on BookTube is fantastic and lovely, and you get all these amazing recommendations, so I tend to be very influenced by BookTube, go off and either buy them or get books from the library. Let me just show you this library stack that I've got. These are books I have not yet read, but I picked them up from the library primarily from BookTube recommendations. Okay, so this is my current library stack, and this isn't even all of them because I've still got some others that are in the other room. These are books that I haven't yet read, but I picked up because they'd either had hype or people were talking about them, or they were on a prize long list. The Jeanette Winterson, I just love Jeanette Winterson, so I read anything that she writes. So these are the books that I need to get to before I take back to the library. But although there's a lot to be said for reading great books that other people recommend, I want to read the books that are specific to my PhD research for context. So I'm looking at 4 authors for my PhD: Ali Smith, Emma McBride, Maggie Nelson and Nicola Barker. They are experimental writers. So I would therefore like to read more experimental literature for background, because I'm doing a lot of placing contemporary authors in a context of a general experimental writer overview. So I will show you some stuff that I have got. These are books that I would like to get to this year. So we have got Blood and Guts in High School by Kathy Acker. This is intense. Like, I have started reading this, and the thing with experimental literature that I know is not for everybody, and this is not for everybody, but I need to read this for context. So this one I want to actually finish. I mean, it did deal with some kind of dark stuff in here, so that's probably one of the reasons why I put it down, because, you know, I couldn't deal with everything in 2020, and that was one of them. Nightwood by Juna Barnes. Again, I've heard lots of great things about this, and it sounds like totally my bag. It's set in the 1920s, and it's all about it's between America and Europe, in Paris. Anything in the 1920s, I want to read it. And apparently the style is what is great about this book. So this one. And Proust, In Search of Lost Time, Volume 1. Haven't even finished this. I know there are lots of volumes of this in the Way by Swans, or In Swan's Way, whatever the translation is. I have to get to this year because I have written about Proust as the contextual grounding for experimental literature, particularly to do with temporality. So I have to read this. Sweet for Barbara Loden by Natalie Leger, which is a book I picked up because it was a recommendation, I think, from either Ali Smith or Maggie Nelson. I can't remember. I think it was Ali Smith. So this was a book that Ali Smith enjoyed, I think, if I've got the context right. It was such a long time ago. I've had this book for ages. It's tiny. I still haven't read it. Terrible. Clarice Lispector, Brazilian author. Again, tiny book. I got halfway through, but I didn't finish it. And this is kind of very stream of consciousness as well. So I've got a few of Lispector's books actually that I want to get to. And The Queen of Steam, Anais Nin, Delta of Venus. I've got a few of her books as well. So those kind of things. And non-fiction selection of essays, which I have talked about, by Olivia Lang, who's one of my favourite writers. Funny Weather, Art in an Emergency. This is like a series of essays and small, like there's author interviews. There's an interview with Ali Smith in here. And the meditations on art and the importance of art in when the world is in crisis. Perfect for now. So I want to read the whole of this because I've read sections of it but not all of it. Okay, so those are the books that I would like to read for my PhD kind of reading around and context. Also, I just want to read books that are on my physical TBR and that are my jam. So I've said about this before, I love ghost stories, I love creepy, I love gothic, I love supernatural. In that vein, here's some stuff I've had on my TBR for a while, a new one I just bought. Hag, this is a short story collection, Forgotten Folk Tales Retold. I love folk tales, I love folklore, mythology, fairy tales, all that kind of stuff. Also, the short story in here by Amy McBride. Well, I haven't read it yet. I don't know, and it's beautiful. So this is high up on my priority list. Laura Purcell is one of those authors that I think I'm going to absolutely love because she writes creepy gothic tales, mostly set in big old houses or Victorian England. And I've got all of her books. I know she's got a new one that's just come out. I will get it. Have I read them? Nope. And I always say I'm going to leave it till Halloween. I'll read them at Halloween. And then I never do. So this, I want to get to at least one Laura Purcell this year. And I know this has had some mixed reviews, but it just really excites me. Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I know this had mixed reviews, but even if it is kind of a little bit YA, I'm down for that. So if it's Gothic, I'm there. And one that I recently bought, a new purchase, which is, oh, sorry about the light, can you see it? This is a book of spells and folklore from Russia, and it is by Natasha Helvin. So this is like a lot of, this is just because I'm interested in this, and I love reading about stuff like this. So although most of these are like spells at the back, I just think it's fantastic. I'm very excited to get to this. Okay, the other thing I want to do is read more poetry. Now, I did do better on this in 2020. I read how many poetry books? I've just talked about this and I've immediately forgotten. But I read more poetry in 2020 than I have in a long time. And I made a concerted effort to do that. 7 poetry books. So that was good. And I very much enjoyed all the poetry that I read. And I bought a few poetry collections, again, based on BookTube recommendations that I want to get to this year. Surge by Jay Bernard. The Perseverance by Raymond Antrobus. Night Sky with Exit Wounds by Ocean Vuong. And this was just happened to be in my local Waterstone, so I picked it up, and Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. So these are the collections that I want to get started with. I'm aiming for 1 poetry collection a month. I aimed for that last year and it didn't happen, but still, we shall aim for it. So those are my reading goals for 2021. Have I got anything else? No, that was it. Like I say, I don't want to go too mad and set myself all these goals and then fail at them. So vaguely, I want to read more of the stuff that I'm interested in that is to do with my PhD, because that's my niche. I'm also going to be doing a series on experimental writing for this channel, so watch out for that in the coming months. I need to do some prep for it, but hopefully the reading that I do for that will then feed into those videos. So I hope you found this interesting. I find it interesting to look back on my reading, particularly to look back on my my bullet journal and say, right, what did I actually read? What should I have done? And, you know, actually going, what should I have DNF'd something? Only 1 book, you know, that's not bad that I'm kind of regretting that I finished. So I do find it interesting to look back on my reading over the year. But similarly, I also don't put too much emphasis on time frames, because I've still got a lot of books that I'm in the middle of, and that's fine, you know. Yes, I went through a phase where I did a lot of mood reading, and therefore I picked up a lot of books and I didn't finish them. And I think there's a whole, you know, having to get books finished by the end of the month so you can wrap them up, or having to get books finished by the end of the year so that you can get your total and meet your challenge. It's unnecessary pressure. So I'm going to carry on with the books that I'm in the middle of. I'll finish them at some point, and that's good enough, you know. So it's all good. If you're reading, it's all good. So I hope you found that interesting. Please, if you are a new subscriber, or if you've just come across this video, please do subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. It really helps me. And tell me if you'd be interested in future videos on experimental literature. Like I say, I know it's not for everybody. And I just thought I'd do it as a side stream, a little series on experimental literature, whether that's fiction or non-fiction, both. Because it's my research interest, so why not go with my niche? All right, guys, I will speak to you soon in another video. Bye.